Okay, so I've completed the underpainting, and as you can see, I've worked out all the major details, found my proportions, worked out the major lights and darks, and so now I can move on to the color stage. In that stage, what I will be doing is adding on top of this successive layers of thin translucent glazes. And by working that way, it has a couple benefits. Number one, it allows me to find my color over time, and with those thin, almost watercolory, thin translucent layers, in the end, it makes my colors much more rich and vibrant, as opposed to painting your colors very flat and it just being one layer. Here it has this richness to it. And since all that's worked out and dealt with, now I can just worry about finding the exact colors, and making sure that all my colors are cohesive, they work well together and are harmonious. And also, oil paints tend to yellow and thin over time, and so the cool black and white underpainting sitting underneath that will counteract that. As I move on to the color stage, I will use a very limited palette. Some painters think that they need to use, a ton of colors, but by limiting your palette, it allows your colors to be more harmonious and cohesive. And so I will be using ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre. Along with that, I'll still in these early stages be using titanium white. Titanium white is a bit more punchy and opaque, and so as I move along, I'll begin to phase that out and instead replace it with Robert Doak's Flemish white, which is a lead-based white and is more thin and translucent. For my glazes, I use Robert Doak's Copal Medium. So Robert Doak sells art supplies out of Brooklyn, New York, and has just high quality materials. He also sells a balsam medium that I use from time to time. But you can just go down to the art supply store and buy Winsor & Newton's blending and glazing medium. What the glazing mediums do is they allow you to thin out your paints without breaking down the binding. So your paint is made up of pigments, which is like a colored powder, and then a binding or binder, which is usually for oil paint, linseed or walnut oil. If you use just turpentine to thin them out, it breaks down that binding and makes them flat, where these glazing mediums allows you to get those rich, just translucent layers without that binding breaking down. When you do the layers of glaze over top of the underpainting, you have to wait till it's completely dry or it'll muddy your colors. So this is completely dry, and so now I'll start in the sky and cloud area, kind of setting the stage, move down into the middle ground, and then down into the foreground with the water. And while all of the basic details are there, as I do each layer of glaze, more and more details will come in, especially down here in the water with the different reflections and highlights and little individual waves.